The Toronto Raptors are stuck in the middle, seemingly with no direction, but they could choose to trade star player Pascal Siakam and spend this summer retooling. But they could also go all in and make a blockbuster trade for Damian Lillard. So, what would that trade look like, and should the Raptors do it? Let's get into it. Welcome everybody to Amateur Hour Sports. This is the YouTube channel dedicated to Toronto Raptors content. So if you want to see more content just like this all throughout the offseason, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a like on this video if you find yourself enjoying. But Damian Lillard rumors are going all around the NBA, with the player wanting to go to the Miami Heat, but the problem is the Miami Heat just don't really have enough to satisfy the needs of what Portland would want to get in that trade, which could provide an opening for some other teams to swoop in. And word around the NBA and reporters is that one of those teams that you need to keep an eye on is the Toronto Raptors. There's going to be so many conversations about the Raptors and what they plan on doing in the offseason, because this is a team stuck all in on nothing with no direction. We took a team that won 41 games last season. Yes, it was a bit of an underachieving team. It looks like the team has gotten slightly worse from what we had last season, but okay, with the players playing better, with Scottie Barnes improving, Gary Trent Jr. improving, other players improving, maybe we can win a few more games, and maybe, just maybe, we can sneak into a top 6 seed or host a play-in tournament game. Now, these outcomes are not bad for an NBA team, but they're not really desirable for the fan base who wants to really be up there contending or focusing on a rebuild or a retool. But without having a 2024 first-round pick, that complicates the situation a lot for the Toronto Raptors. And based on all the conversations we've seen from Masai Ujiri in press conferences, he is still intent on winning and could have one last heave here to try and propel this team back into contention. And that could be involving, like I said, superstar point guard Damian Lillard. So for starters, Damian Lillard, he wants to go to Miami. So how the hell can the Raptors end up landing the player? Well, from the Miami Heat, what are they really going to be offering the Portland Trail Blazers? The trade in question would have to be Tyler Hero. It would be 2 first-round picks, because all they are allowed to trade at this present point. They could open up a third pick to trade, so 3 first-round picks, but the centerpiece player-wise of the deal would be Tyler Hero for, I guess, Tyler Hero and his talent, and because of the money that the Miami Heat owe Tyler Hero, they need to balance out salaries in some way. Additions would be like either Kyle Lowry or Duncan Robinson to fill out the salary, but Tyler Hero in 3 picks seems to be the centerpiece from the Miami Heat. The problem is Portland do not want Tyler Hero, and why would they? Tyler Hero is owed a lot of money over the next 4 years. I think it's in the range of $130 million. I'm not convinced Tyler Hero is worthy of that contract, first of all, and it doesn't seem as though Portland are either. And why would they want to bring in another guard to the mix when they already have super talented young guards who need playtime, like Anthony Simons, like Shaedon Sharpe, like new acquisition in the 3rd overall pick, Scoot Henderson? So Portland don't really want to do business with Miami. It's just Damian Lillard trying to handcuff that team and saying, I don't want to go anywhere but Miami. If I get traded anywhere else, I'm just not going to show up to training camp. But the reality is the Portland Trail Blazers don't owe Damian Lillard anything. Damian Lillard signed his contract, which waived his freedom to choose his team. And Portland, sure, they can care a little bit about finding Dame a spot where he can contend, but perhaps he could be convinced about what the Raptors could look like in a contending phase if he does join the team. So if the Raptors truly are in the mix, and some great reporters are suggesting they are inquiring about Damian Lillard to the Portland Trail Blazers, what would that trade have to look like? Well, for starters, the Raptors need a centerpiece of the trade, because we just don't have that high availability of draft picks. That 2024 first-round pick has protections that could convey all the way up to 2026, which renders the 2027 first-round pick untradeable as well. So the only 2 picks in the first round the Raptors can trade as of this present point is the 2028 first-round pick and a 2030 first-round pick. And that is a lot of time in the future where you're sacrificing for this present team, and we have to discuss if that is going to be worth it. But what if a player in there is so good that maybe only 1 first-round pick has to go in the trade? And that is the type of offer that was brought up on The Ringer that the Raptors could present to the Portland Trail Blazers. And the centerpiece of the trade would unfortunately have to be Scottie Barnes. Now, you might be thinking you'd rather keep Scottie Barnes, you'd rather trade Siakam, you'd rather trade OG Anunoby in the deal. But I understand You want to keep a hold of Scottie Barnes, but from a Raptors perspective, they are making this trade for Damian Lillard. They are going all in on the next few seasons. And going all in would mean you want to have the best players here. Now, Scottie Barnes has crazy potential. He's a great player. He's not as good as OG Anunoby is right now. He's not as good as Pascal Siakam is right now. That's for damn sure. So it would kind of defeat the purpose of trading for Dame if you had to sacrifice OG or Pascal in the process. So the centerpiece of the trade would be Scottie Barnes. Going along with Scottie Barnes would be Gary Trent Jr., mostly for salary. Unfortunately, I would really want Gary on the team to play next to Dame, but Gary Trent would have to be in the deal, along with other salary fillers like these players we can afford to give up. Otto Porter Jr., Thaddeus Young, and Chris Boucher, along with a pick swap in 2029 and that 2028 first-round pick. The Raptors also get Nasir Little in the deal, which I haven't been a fan of Nasir Little for a couple of years now if you've been watching this channel for that long, so I don't mind that at all. So Damian Lillard and Nasir Little for that plethora of players, the centerpieces being Scottie Barnes mainly, but also Gary Trent Jr. This would obviously leave the Raptors a little bit thin if they were to make this trade. But just exactly what would that depth chart look like? Because there's no point of making this trade and even considering this trade if it's not going to make the Raptors a legitimate contender. So I'll leave it up to you guys as well when you see this. Do you believe this team could contend? A lot of it would have to be if you believe Damian Lillard can be the first option on a championship team. And I've seen Dame will this Portland Trailblazers team to heights that they should be nowhere near because of his outstanding ability as a basketball player, but more importantly, his outstanding ability as a clutch performer and a playoff performer. So, Raptors starting five would likely become Damian Lillard. You would have to bring Grady Dick up into the starting five to provide some spacing. Don't hate that. You then have OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Jakob Poeltl. On the bench is where you get a little bit more thin. Don't worry about the positions. We do what we can. The Raptors can be a little bit positionless, but Dennis Schroeder would be the backup point guard. He would be the sixth man. You would have, just for the sake of this conversation, Jalen McDaniels in the 2 spot, Nasir Little in the 3. Don't think we'd have to run a full 10-man. It'd be a 9-man. Precious Achiuwa would likely be the big in that scenario, but for the sake of a 10-man rotation, Koloko would round it off as the center. So, yeah, top-heavy team, outstanding talent in the starting five. You have Damian Lillard, who probably should have been All-NBA first team this season if he did play enough games. It's just that Portland fell off and he sat out. If he didn't sit out, he was making All-NBA first team. You have an All-NBA caliber forward in Pascal Siakam, who was coming off of an All-Star season, one where he did get a good amount of All-NBA votes. You have the perfect complementary player for those, a guy who can guard the 1 through 5 in OG Anunoby. You have a little bit of shooting with Grady Dick, and you have the pick-and-roll center and defensive stopper and great rebounder in Jakob Poeltl. Dennis Schroeder off the bench I like, but that's where it really stops. When it comes to a playoff, and especially if the Raptors are making this trade, they're expecting a deep playoff run. As far as the players here, I'm only trusting 6 of them. Maybe even only 5 of them in deep playoff runs. We just haven't seen enough of Grady Dick to suggest that he can do that, but for the sake of this conversation, let's consider him a guy that would continue to start in the playoffs. Schroeder coming off the bench. Jalen McDaniels coming off a season where he fell out of the Sixers playoff rotation. Nasir Little, as much as I like the player, I'm not sure he's quite good enough to be in a consistent playoff rotation. Achiuwa, if he was anything like this season, there's no way he's going anywhere near a playoff rotation. Although, we saw with the Sixers a couple years ago, he can be good. We just don't know what we're going to get out of Achiuwa, and Koloko as well is a little bit too young. So, top-heavy team. This is a team that, even with those 6 guys, maybe you add in a piece to the deadline, maybe you tinker a little bit, maybe you find a signing that can come into the team. Various ways you can add in another interesting piece, but it just feels like something is missing from this team overall. I think that this is certainly a contender. This is somebody that the teams would look at and think that this is a contender, but ultimately, this doesn't put us past the Celtics. It doesn't put us past the Bucks. Depending what happens with the Sixers, it may not put us past them. So the situation is still extraordinarily complicated for the Raptors because you do go all in on this deal, but I don't think it puts you quite over the top as a contender. And the risk associated with this is you have to trade Scottie Barnes to make it happen. And a year ago, you wouldn't trade Scottie Barnes for Kevin Durant. And with all due respect to Dame, he's not Kevin Durant. And you also have to trade Gary Trent Jr., who you're looking to extend and have a long-term future planned with him. And along the risk as well is Damian Lillard's contract. 2 years left, getting high 40s. And then he's shooting up to $58 million in the third year. And in his 37-year-old season, by the way, Dame turns 33 tomorrow at the time of recording, July 15th, he turns 33. In his age 37 season, he's going to be making over $60 million. Now, as much as I love Dame, Dame is one of my top 2 favorite non-Raptors players in the NBA. I love Damian Lillard, but that is a massive financial commitment, a massive risk in the players that you're giving up to make this trade happen. All for a team that, yes, it's a very interesting team that would challenge and on a good run could win an NBA championship, but I don't think the odds of that championship happening with this trade and with this team are great enough to suggest that it is worth going all in on a trade like this. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Would you make this trade? And do you think this team is a bona fide contender? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more Raptors content just like this. And I'll see you again very soon for some more content here on Amateur Hour Sports.